Hey, how's everybody doing? Oh, the lizards running crazy, man. Just a few minutes, and we're going to get the thing going. Today, we're going to chit chat a little bit about code of. And we're going to be kind of mirroring what the journalistic code of ethics is, because what we're doing is actually naturally it's journalism, right? We call ourselves whatever we want, but this is sharing media, and so it's actually journalism. That's why they make you preface it for entertainment purposes only. So it has some educational value, but you are warned upon entry that a lot of this that you're going to be exposed to is absolute bullshit. So anyhow, I have a very articulate guest this afternoon. And she is going to come on and really help us articulate what we know currently as a kind of a blanket code of ethics that should be applying to all of us right now, but unfortunately it's not. So I'm going to bring her in now, guys. Her name is, there it is.
Hello.
The beautiful Boston. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Oh, good. It's nice to be back.
and welcome back.
Well, hopefully, being back doesn't start things up again. So I'm pretty sure it will, but oh well, duty happens.
Yeah. So ethics, I know that is really, it's really an issue in regards to the way we see a lot of the behavior popping off right now online. So you made me familiar with the journalistic code of ethics, which I know you've been saying in my ear since the beginning that we're not recreating the wheel. So what do you want to start with?
Well, I think talking about the wheel is probably a good start. Like just to introduce everybody to things that have happened recently in the recent past, the Cecil Hotel Netflix show kind of gave us all a good slap up the side of the head and said, what the hell are you doing? Like, where's your ethics? Right. And the guy who was actually at the center of that's John Lorden, his name is. His channel is Lorden Arts. He copped a lot of backlash for, people going out and attacking. Who was the guy again? I forget his name now. Attacking that dude that everyone thought had killed the girl. I just can't remember his name for some reason. It jumped out of my head. But anyway, when that happened and he copped all that backlash, he sort of put together a couple of the most popular, I guess, channels in true crime. And what are we going to do? How do we combat this like backlash stuff? How do we separate it and understand what it is that we're doing? And I guess it came down to having a code of ethics. And so I actually agree with that. I don't think we need to reinvent that wheel. Like, he's done a lot of work. It's not just him. It's quite a number of really big channels out there that have done a lot of this work already. And I'd like to maybe suggest piggybacking on that or joining them or whatever it is you want to call it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Someone's got to start, somebody's got to start the whole movement, and it's not necessarily that we're starting it, but that we're initiating it in our part of the community where we're just not seeing it, right? I personally haven't seen a lot of people adhering to any sort of code of ethics, right?
Right. And I don't think the point is adhering to it. Like, just to throw an example out there, okay, I'm an animal lover and I don't like people who mistreat animals. So if you come into my circle, my social circle, and you're mistreating animals, and I know that you're mistreating animals, I'm just going to ditch your ass. Like, I'm not going to hang around with you. I'm not going to go places with you. I'm just not going to have anything to do with you, because that's my personal ethics. If you mistreat animals and you don't fit in my sphere, and so trying to get people to adhere to a code of ethics is probably a little bit of a pointless task, because nobody's going to. We already know that to start with, but it's just a personal thing that you take on board. If you're a creator and you have a code of ethics and you state that you have that code of ethics at the start of your shows, or it's in your description or whatever, then that spreads it out there, and it's like it's a social change that happens over time, I think, is probably more to the point. Like, there was a study that I was looking at a couple of years ago, and I think it was a survey that someone put out, and the conclusion of the survey was that up to 85% of Americans can't distinguish between facts and opinion.
Absolutely.
Right. And so that's
Absolutely.
a very big population of people who don't actually get what facts are. And we don't want to go up against that, like it. And people still are entitled to choose between facts and opinion, I guess. We don't need to be the world police of anything,
Correct.
But social attitudes shift over time. And, like you can go back 400 years, we were burning witches and slaughtering natives,
And that wasn't that
but
long
we're not
ago.
doing that. Right. But we're not doing that anymore, because, and that's just an example, that social attitudes do shift over time. And, to be to be a part of what Lorden Arts and Crime Con is doing is an honourable part, I think, in doing our part of helping to shift and adjust the social attitudes by adopting them ourselves. Just as I was explaining, we want to be animal lovers. Well, we can't really police that, can we? So
no, I don't think we can. I mean, you just play on, it's the good guy, it's the buddy system, right? It's like need a penny, take a penny, penny, leave a penny.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
Right.
And so there's really, without any sort of federal legislation blocking a lot of the actions that these journalists on YouTube do, you're just playing on one's wholesomeness and good family values, and I think that a lot of the things that the creators put out here, I think to myself, it's like you kiss your mother with that mouth. And I know people say that about me. Sometimes for
Right.
me, using the F word is the only thing that I've got in the moment that gets attention. And that becomes an issue too, because if people don't like the way it sounds, then they forget what you're saying. Right.
Right. So, and everyone's got their own like personality behind what makes their channel popular. So, I don't think we need to, police personalities and all that sort of thing. But if it's long, an ethic, a boundary of ethics in mind, and I'm just to give you the example, I'm just going to read off of the CrimeCon website. And for those who don't know what CrimeCon is, it's exactly like Comic-Con. It's a convention where everybody who shares an interest goes along and shares their interest, basically. So CrimeCon is for podcasters and YouTubers who are into the true crime community. And but I'm just going to pull out one paragraph off the About CrimeCon page, which says, "Our events are equal parts education and experience. Whether you're interested in wrongful convictions, forensic linguistics, cold cases, or the latest in forensic science, we work hard to curate a wide-ranging program that has something for everybody." blah, blah, blah. Now, and then the next paragraph reads, but no matter what our program has in store, hardly a day goes by that our team doesn't think about the fact that we cover things that often involve the worst day of someone's life.
Facts.
Respect for victims, families, and law enforcement is always in front of everything we do.
I mean, there you go. I mean, it's there is kind of this blurry line when it comes to American law enforcement because when someone has the worst day of their life, for a short moment, there's actual advocating from police or from law enforcement to the victim, but then it's turned over to a medic, and then it's turned over to a doctor, and then to a prosecutor. Meanwhile, the policeman's main job, their main focus is to be on the criminal, right? The suspect. That's the name of their game. Later on in the hospital, somebody gets a call from a victim advocates from the PD. So there isn't really this really concrete training. There is actually a lack of training when it comes to the compassion of the police officer, and I think that we see with law enforcement suicide rates that there is a real compassion fatigue pretty quickly for these guys. For their own families, right. Not only the people that they're out there to be servicing. So, for me, the code of ethics is what we look. You could be ethically in a really bad spot, and a policeman show up, and he is the reset. He's the resetter of all ethical engagements, right? So you will be fucking up beyond the scope of the law, and the policemen show up, and you look like you go to church now. So they reset right. that. We look to the police for that, that mentor, that helper, that protector. And when they come right. here and they help blur the lines between what is appropriate and what's not, the onlookers, they're like, oh, well, he did it. It's okay.
Right. And it's not okay.
It's not okay. No.
And
no.
In some situations, they have a moral duty to, interview suspects and find out who's the guilty party, and, to help build the case to bring a prosecution forward, blah, blah, blah. They have that ethical duty themselves. But to put it on blast, and blow open an investigation, and I think one of the things I heard Chris McDonough's guest say was, we are actually hoping that law enforcement or detectives are watching this so that we can influence the investigation. And I guess that's what a lot of people are aiming for. They actually do want to influence an investigation. But when you want to move that forward in time, let's move it, forward to, you've got someone in jail, and like that young Crow boy is probably a good example. You've Absolutely. Got them, you've got them wrapped up, they're going to go to jail. You've got all this like evidence that you've built against them, and the public's helped you to do that. It's all hearsay and circumstantial. You've got no body. You go through the court cases. He ends up in jail, and then he's entitled to a whole bunch of appeals. And right. if your whole case was built on public information, or what the public says, or rumors and hearsay, if your whole case is built on that, by the time you get to an appeal, whether you believe that person is guilty or not, by the time you get to an appeal, that person's getting out of jail.
Facts.
And so you need to let the police actually have evidence, facts, not yep. opinions and rumors and hearsay and the whole gamut that goes into it. And we've got a case coming up, which I would like to talk another time when we have time. I'd like to talk on another case that's coming up because it goes into how the public actually impacts the appeals process. Now, this person, there's a 50-50 chance she's going to get off death row. Now, whether you support her getting off death row or you don't support getting off death row. The point is the putting her on death row, and that is going to come into question in this particular appeal. And it's going big because it's on it's a Innocence Project appeal, basically. For those who are not familiar with Innocence Project, they're just a bunch of lawyers who do appeals pro bono for the most worthy cases, I guess. And so if you want to talk about, you know, like people like Chris McDonough like to say, you know, I've got a XYZ success rate of putting people in jail. Well, my question is, what is your exoneration rate?
Exoneration rate. Yay.
Because in science, we work on a error rate, not a success rate. Everything's worked off of an error rate. What's the percentage of error, plus or minus? So the last figures I looked at for America was something like 2,000 exonerations, of 200 of which were on death row. 70% of these exonerations were proven by DNA science, not statement analysis and the shit that Chris McDonough does. All right, that's what put him in jail.
That's what put them there.
Exactly. Right. So,
fuck you,
so
mean?
Yeah, it has a flow-on effect. What we do here on YouTube as creators, it has a flow-on effect into, you know, the higher courts and the appellate courts and so on. And we really do have to keep all of that in mind. You've always been on the right path saying we don't need to taint a jury, but on top of that, we don't need to taint an appeals process. And this upcoming appeal that I would like to talk about goes into great detail, like exact detail about how and why this stuff is really important, right back here at the investigation stage.
Yeah, and you know that's really, you know, people are like, they're not here for entertainment, we're here for justice. And it's like, yeah, I can tell by the way you comment, because what's going to happen is, I tell you, like, so most of the people that are involved in this thing online, it's for entertainment purposes, right? Because the way they meddle in it and the way that they comment in it shows that they have no foresight or insight about what it goes to after it leaves YouTube. Like when you no longer have access to it and it goes to the court, they don't even care about the imprint and the indentation that they've made on the jury pool that's in Tennessee, Hawkins County, watching right now. If it stays at the state level, the people that are watching these videos, they're being polluted by every second of it that they watch.
That's right. That's exactly right. And what was I going to say about that?
Auntie, what's up, bro?
I'm a firm believer in prevention is better than cure. So
a pound of prevention, or an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, in fact.
Right. And so what you're discussing about, you know, putting a petition together and trying to change, you know, have some sort of law or something going to the legislators to be put in place so that people can't do it. I don't know that it is prevention. I totally get that it is prevention, but I don't know that that's the right answer. And I could be all on my own with this, but I always have a problem with the government making rules for us. I would rather be involved in making the rules and saying this is what we want, rather than just giving them an open book and saying, here you go, govern me. And that's why we have a defense. That's why we have a defense attorney, because they're there to protect us against the government. The government has to have, when it all goes to trial, the government has to prove their case against us, and we have a defense attorney there to protect us from, you know, false allegations or whatever it is, to protect our rights through the trial process, to make sure we have a fair trial, etc., etc. So if you want the government to make rules for you and you don't set out what the rules are, then you probably aren't thinking straight. So when we're talking about prevention, we're already in the process now. We're already at the other end. We're watching the results. And this case I was just talking about that's going to appeal is the result of not having preventative measures or ethics or anything involved to begin with. So we are, in essence, creating a cure. But I would like to look at it from let's create a prevention first and then worry about how legislators can give us, a legal remedy for a cure. So this is basically a code of ethics for creators, not for viewers. Viewers can spew whatever bullshit they want in the comments. It's just bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't.
But
Stop that.
Right. You're not going to be able to stop people having their opinions versus facts. That's always going to happen. But the question I want to ask is, do you want the gutter trash in your comments? And the common answer is no. You don't want them in your comments, but they need to go somewhere. If you shut off all the other channels that are doing the gutter trash stuff, then they have nowhere to go. They're going to come to your channels and start spreading the gutter trash in your channel. And then you're going to have arguments and you have all this shit going on. And it makes it really difficult. It makes it a stress as a creator that you've got all these stresses going on in your comments. So if you shut them down, then they don't have anywhere to go. They'll come to your channel. So you want them to have somewhere to go rather than shutting them down, if that makes sense. You're not hearing what you want to hear from us. That's fine. Fuck off somewhere else. Excuse French, but that's the verbiage I'm going to use.
Well, I think that, the issue with allowing the gutter trash to spew what they want is that that is essentially, in my opinion, a lot of times that becomes the bait in which the creators use. They hear something from a commenter or what I mean? And so so you have a hard time yoking the creator to be independent and come up with his own ideals and his own, when they just regurgitate and recycle what they hear from, what you call trusted sources. We all have them. That's what makes this whole thing tick, is our secure, trusted sources. And, when a creator finds that he gets a lot more press and that revenue on that other special app for creators, where the revenue goes up, that's the incentive to continue to feed the fish what they want. You don't go fishing with what the fish don't want. And that's what makes it hard to do this work, because the gutter trash, they depend on seeing what I have right here, guys. What is in blue here? Many journalists also abide by the principle of limitation of harm, which means that they have responsibility to not harm others while reporting a story. This one major difference between professional journalists reporting for reputable, in quotes, news organizations as opposed to fringe news sources and fake news. Now, a lot of people are like, what's a fake news creator? Well, if you know what a fake news creator is, you are in the 14th person that understands the difference between fact and opinion. The other 86%, they will get hooked in the lip by a fake news creator because they can't tell the fucking difference. They can't tell the difference. 86% of the time, you can shoot from the hip and people are going to believe it in a mass majority. That is a problem. Right. That's a fucking problem.
I'll tell you another problem too, Benny, is people can't actually distinguish between what is a comment in chat and what is not acceptable in chat. I noticed this on Voices Behind the Walls live stream. People were getting deleted, and people get upset because their comments are getting deleted. And it's like, how many fucking times do you have to tell people to be polite? Like, it's not hard, man. Be polite. You don't have to be impolite.
You know what? And I would like to say that all of us over here, including myself, we are in the 14th percentile. That is always going to be a very small group, right? Now, look, there's a lot of us that have been doing it a long time. I have not been doing this a long time. I am at 4,000 subscribers, right? But I learned very easily that the subscribers that I obtain through my struggle and our struggle and our like-mindedness, those aren't fair weather fans. Those are people that have a conviction deep inside of them. And those people are the ones that are investigating on their own, and they do have credible information. Whereas the other 86%, they're here to be entertained, right? When you have that large of a gap, when you have that large of a difference, what you have is lazy people that don't go, and they're not motivated by justice. When you're motivated by fucking justice, you're gonna pick apart what the font looks like in the articles you're reading. You're on everything. You're on top of the neck of everything. When you are a gutter trash, you are what you are.
Yes. And just to bring it back to Lord and Arts again, this is something that I find about looking at his content before, he copped a lot of backlash for this. The way that he does things now, he literally wants to help. He wants to help the police find the perpetrator. He doesn't want to just spread rumors and do it all for entertainment. And he said constantly throughout this change, I don't care if I lose subscribers over this. If that's what you want, go elsewhere. I don't care if I lose subscribers over it. I don't care if I lose income over it. What I care about is that we're actually helping perpetrators get caught. We are helping the police find the perpetrator or find the missing child, and so on. So I just want to read from Lord and Art's website. I sent you the link, but I'll just read it out if you like. From Brain Scratches. This is one of Lord and Art's channel. He's got several sort of like areas that he covers. Sometimes he's talking about true crime content. Sometimes he's talking about specific stories. And Brain Scratches is the mystery, the ones that aren't solved yet, that we're still looking into. We're still trying to help solve them. Have you got Brain Scratches there?
I do. Hold on one second. My wife is coaching me on the side, so hold on one second. I'm going to bring up the brain.
I'll read it while you're scrolling around, okay?
Okay.
The framework of Brain Scratch is relatively simple. The outline below is specific to covering a murder story, but can also be used for a missing persons episode. 1, a timeline of the known events, the day of the murder or the disappearance. 2, potential suspects or people of interest in the original investigation. That is what the police have told us, not what we've made up ourselves. We'll get to that part in a second. 3, stories or theories on the motive. For example, why did X kill Y, and who those theories came from. And of course, we always want to stick to authoritative sources for that. And then 5, fringe theories, which is essential thoughts on the public on what may or could have happened. We can talk about gossip, ideas that don't necessarily line up with the official story, opinions from non-experts, and so on. And so that's the 5-step process that he's trying to sort of promote as a kind of a guide to code of ethics. And when we started this, we said, let's not invent the wheel. I reckon we just jump on to the turning wheel that's already going and run with that. And as a community, like, he's part of the CrimeCon community, and the CrimeCon community are the the creme de la creme of the crime community. They're not the gutter trashers.
Right.
So if they've already got a wheel spinning, let's just jump on that wheel and say, well, this is a good sort of framework for us to work with.
Facts. Yeah, it is. I mean, this is going to. This
Thought
is
out framework between a lot of people.
right. Yeah, and I think that you know, what I'm coming to realize is that as creators, when you you know, you focus on numbers. I focus on numbers because that means how many people I've reached with an honest message. Now, when I look at other creators that are on the fringe or in the fringe, their numbers mean something different to me. And so there again, you see that big gap in numbers. And you know, I think that it's really difficult. What you have is, I think Don and Candace fell victim to the fact that people with large numbers, that large numbers must equate to the best or the most honest. When in fact, the large numbers a lot of times means that you're the most salacious. I mean, look at TMZ or whatever, right? So there's not a handbook for victims when they decide that they want to keep the message alive. They want to keep their children in the press any way that they can.
Right.
But
so that people are still looking for them, not so that they can point fingers, but so that people are still looking for the child. I mean, that's the point. The whole point of keeping them in the spotlight is so that people are still out there looking for the child. If they happen to cross them in the supermarket or run into them at a bus stop or whatever, it's to be keeping an eye out for that missing person. It's not to create a narrative, build a freaking, movie out of it. But I would just like to point out here that I like John Lawden's idea of calling them fringe theories, because then we're not putting them offside. The ones that I don't want to support, and I will call them every name under the sun, are people who ring up others that have had fingers pointed at them, give them death threats, that sort of crap. That to me, that's gutter trash. So if you're not out there sending death threats and being stupid in that sort of realm of stupidity, then you're not gutter trash. You're just really a fringe theorist, if that makes sense.
Correct. Yeah. And that's okay
too. That removes the combativeness where you end up with fights. Instead of calling people each other's names, you can say, well, I understand you have a fringe theory. Here's your fringe theory.
Correct.
Sorry, have I lost you?
You'll have to, you broke up for just a second. Sorry.
That's all right. I can't even remember what I said. Well, it just breaks down. It stops the combativeness, the infighting, because you're not calling people names then. You're just saying, well, that's a fringe theory that people might want to hear.
Right. So I right here on the Brain Scratch, I've got kind of what is the Brain Scratch episodes are laid out in structure, and we have what is the official belief, and that is a good question, because if you look, all the three pieces of the structure, the template, the framework, aren't really questions. They're more rhetorical questions. But this number one, what is the official belief? Right? Like what's the official belief, and what is the danger of a large creator that has his own belief, and kind of because of the numbers involved with his own belief, that's sort of adopted, kind of stepchild-like. It's adopted as an official belief. I mean, question mark, right? Like,
question mark.
Chris, right? Question mark, right? Is Chris M's is Saint Christopher's narrative? Is that the official belief? How can you get a honest poll of what the official belief is, other than going to Chris M's like and dislike and seeing what that I mean, is that what we're polling it
Well,
by? I mean,
he's not an official. He's not an official because he's not the TBI.
right. Right, but I mean, but see that, but you see what I mean? Like, as far as YouTube is concerned, because we get such limited info, or rather releases from TBI now, you know, I think that people have adopted whatever the interview room is pushing as a narrative. I think that that's what's kind of become, you know, you got a scenario where people are so hungry for information that they've already forgotten what TBI said officially because they've been saturated by what every other creator is saying. And I know that's a real issue, because when it comes to me trying to remember all of these details, I too will forget what TBI has actually said about it and remember what a content creator said about it. It replaces, you know, the creator content. It has a tendency to replace in people's minds what is the actual detail or scenario.
Right, and what you're crossing into now is called logical fallacy territory. And this particular fallacy is called appeal to authority. And so Chris says he's an authority, but he's not the authority in this case. He's just an authority. So he's a false authority, if that makes sense, because he's not involved in this case. But he's acting as an authority and saying things as an authority and saying, believe me, because I'm an authority, when he's not really an authority. You know, you get what I'm saying? That's called a appeal to false authority, I guess is the word, is the fallacy. Right. There's hundreds of different types of fallacies out there. And I sent you a link a little while back to a channel that runs through like at least 30 different fallacies that people tend to connect to. And this is the thing, it is human nature for us to have a confirmation bias, and that's why we click with fallacies. We click with the fallacy that fits our own way of processing things. So, and we do have those confirmation biases when we hear someone talk about it. We can just go to XYZ channel and they're talking about the same thing, but then you go over to Chris's channel and he's talking about it, but he's an authority, and so now we're appealing to the authority rather than what did the police actually say about it. Again, this is the same as trying to determine, you know, lack of distinction between fact versus opinion. Because he's an authority, it's seen less as opinion when it actually is opinion.
Right. No, yeah, I get that. You know, for me, I'm looking at what I'm kind of trying to, you know how you've seen the wave in a football stadium, you know, how everyone stands up, and that's kind of, you get that look on the camera because everyone's really, you know, you've got a lot of people that are really in sync. And that's really cool. But what happens, you really, when these videos drop out, it looks the same way as the stadium wave. You just can't see it. There's a lot of things that if you put just the slightest different twist on it, and then you run that out of the mouth of an expert, quote unquote, it has to be biblical, right? Or biblical. It has to be the scripture, the tabernacle. And you just cannot pull a lot of these subscribers away from, you know, their favorite YouTuber. And I get it. And you know, for the belief, you know, and one thing I want to say real quick is, for everyone else out there, you can call them subscribers or followers. Man, I from now on, I'm gonna call mine believers. Y'all are believers, you know, like you believe in all the same things I believe in, and, you know, so on and so forth. So, you know, the people that believe in what we do here, you know, they're able, and they go out and it's really like our wave is a wave that tries to go back around the stadium the other way, counter of what is the mass, right? And, you know, I go on to some of these things and I go on mainly, I don't listen to anything these people say. I go in there to find the believers that believe in me and find their comments where they're fighting the masses all by themselves. And I like to go in there and find those comments and try to lift them up underneath of their comment. Like, I'm here for you now, right? Like you know, it's gotta be that way, because if the content creators are only appealed to because of them crowd, what is it? What do you call it? Crowd pleasing. There it is. Crowd pleasing.
Yeah.
Right. Crowd pleasing equals generated revenue. They are synonymous. They are the same thing here. And that becomes dangerous when you are handling narratives of you know, open investigations publicly. And again, I'm going to say it. You guys know this shit. Everybody in the U.S. is watching this in some facet, right? But you know who's got what area has the densest population of viewers per capita is going to be Hawkins County, Tennessee. And Hawkins County is red. And as you move out away from it, you know, it starts, you know, getting white and white and white until, you know, you get over to China, nobody's watching this stuff, right? But in Hawkins, Tennessee, everybody's watching this shit. If they got a phone, they're on it, right? And that's how these numbers are so large. We saw, Aussie and I, we saw on the Orrin and Orson West case, there was never not one video that went 100,000, or let alone 200,000 something. Like, those numbers were unheard of in that case. But over here, when you see the contiguousness of a creator that's on the fringe, he wants you to believe that he's not on the fringe, but he's controlling numbers like that, 250,000 at a time. That seems like an insurmountable feat. But you know, how do you, what I think that we need to try to find out is, how do you appeal to the sensibilities of the content creators to get them to sign the Geneva Convention, right? Like how do you go to,
America?
Go ahead.
America hasn't actually signed the Geneva Convention, so.
Well, I mean, I use Geneva Convention in you know, in a comedic fashion to asking,
and I am too many.
Right.
I am too many.
Right.
The rest of the world signed it, but America hasn't. You know, like, that's always going to happen.
Absolutely.
But I'm using it in tongue in cheek in the exact same way that you're saying it. But the fact is, they haven't signed it. They haven't signed a lot of the human rights international laws. There's a lot of stuff that America just has refused to sign.
No, we just enforce it. That's all.
Right. And you refuse to go to The Hague and be held up by The Hague, which is the world court, you know, for war crimes. So
we're special.
You know, like, it doesn't matter if you're talking about just, you know, the general public or the people right there up the top. They don't want to fucking follow the laws, you know. It's all there is to it. So you can only make the choice for yourself and say, well, this is my own set of ethics and I'm going to practice it. And the more people that get on board and practice it, the more the fringe dwellers become fringe dwellers, the more fringe they become. Yeah. And social attitudes change over time. The more it's out there, the more people want to be kind, I think. Yeah. And I guess the thing, if you want to find that balance, if you want to find that balance, I'm thinking, you know, one of the journalistic, it should have been on that page for the journalistic ethics, is that you always give the right of reply. If you're going to point a finger at someone, like later on, you want to discuss something with Cam Cam wants to talk about. Right. So later on, you want to talk about, you know, something that a fringe theory that Cam has come up with, and we're going to hear him out. We're happy to hear him out. But then you need to be open to give whoever he mentions in that fringe theory to have the right of reply. Facts. So if you're going to be against, you know, someone and you're going to point a finger at them and say, this is what I think, blah, 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 that's okay. Hear it out. But you need to have that right of reply and let the other person have the right of reply. And then now what you're doing is you're allowing people to make their own choices. have their own opinions and make their own choices from that.
Right.
And I think that rather than creating a police force or anything, legislatively, that this is the way we work with the social attitude shift over time.
Right. And I can tell you wholeheartedly and truthfully that the FBI, they will come to your house in regards to stuff from YouTube. 100%. Like they don't play. They will come. So anybody who thinks that some of the stuff that they're doing online, they won't be held accountable for, I'm here to tell you that they will come see about you. So that's all. It's all relative, I guess, to what you're commenting and what your content is about. But I received
right. Well, you've already got laws for defamation. Defamation, and I don't know why my mind just went blank, but you know what I'm talking about. You've already got laws against that.
Right.
So, but does it stop people from defaming each other? No, it doesn't. They still defame each other. And the only way that those laws actually work is if you sue the person, and then you've got to have money to sue the person.
Right.
And if you don't have the money, then they get away with it, sort of thing. So, heading down that same path, and there's also another set of that's civil. That's on the civil side of things, but there's also criminal laws called cyber crimes, and but that doesn't stop people from committing cyber crimes either. People are still out there committing cyber crimes. So
every day,
to think that's
in record numbers,
right, and to think that committing that having a legislation stops the crime from being committed, I think that's a bit of another sort of logical fallacy, because when you look at all the laws that are actually out there, it doesn't stop people at all. Like we know Texas has the death penalty for murder, but people are still murdering.
Yes, we do. Remember it.
Is it stopping? Does it stop people from murdering though?
No,
it doesn't.
Nope.
Right. So coming at it from the legislatory sort of perspective, I'm not against it, but I just think that it's not really going to change much unless we ourselves have a different sort of shift in attitude.
Yeah. Well, like we've all, in order to, make car manufacturers put seatbelts in, you got to see people go through the windshield a few times, right? So unfortunately, in order to enact a code of ethics, somebody's going to be the one. Like there's a YouTuber right now. I'm not going to mention her name, but she's been brought to civil court in an attempt to obtain $10 million from her for the works that she did on YouTube. So someone's going to have to be the sacrificial lamb before these people, realize that what they're doing is not helpful. I mean, I had it pulled up. Let me see if I've still got it. Hold on. I don't. But the Innocent Project, 3 exonerations a week happen in the USA. Now, exoneration doesn't mean that you stayed overnight in jail and then they're like, oh, we figured it out, we're going to cut you loose, Benny. Exoneration is only from prison. So you spent...
And it's only for life sentences. It's only for life sentences.
Yes, and death row cases hold a big portion of that percentage as well. So, you're talking about people who lost their lives, faulty detective work, faulty DA work, bad science. You put the wrong man in jail. You think the victim of the family, they've gotten closure. They've moved on with their life. They celebrate the life. And then all of a sudden, 10 years, 20 years later, it gets brought up that, no, we've got this new scientific technological break. And actually, this smudge we found, it proves that the person that just did 20 years on this murder isn't the murderer. So now you got to tell the family that we're cutting this person loose that you've been hating Or maybe you
Right.
don't even. Maybe you've reached, after all this time, you've reached a point where you forgive this person. You've went through the full range of emotion because a detective and a DA worked together to confuse a jury to put the wrong person in prison.
Right.
Fact.
And like things get so
Facts.
complicated by the public because, like, in that Crow case, right, the brother ended up being innocent. He got freed. And then they found the guy who did it by DNA, I think it was.
And he's being released.
Because he just got released. And you can imagine he's released because he was exonerated. He got released because of COVID. Imagine his family, they're going through it all over again from day dot, going, holy fucking hell, we still didn't get justice. He's been let out on the streets to kill again.
That's it. And there was, and I'm not going to go into crazy specifics, but there was, there once was a case that Chris M was involved in. And when it played out and there was an exoneration, there was a civil suit, and this man was named in the civil suit. Right?
Yeah,
we know this.
We know that's the Crow one I'm talking about.
Absolutely, it is. This man was named in a suit.
Is current today. He's still getting sued for that today, I think. Like 2020
and what that means,
was the last
people
report.
To the layman, what that means is that the person that's suing Chris M, they can't get the time back in their life that Jesus gave them, that Saint Christopher took away. So they're going to accept a financial reparation for the time that Chris took away from his life. Right.
Right.
So when that's it. People are like, oh no, once they hand the case off to the DA, the experts get involved. Yada. Listen, the detective, he paves the road and everyone else drives on it. Right. The case goes where the detective points it. Right. So, essentially, the way detectives look at it is if they put somebody in county jail and they say this is the guy, to them that's a closed case. They don't track it, like Aussie said. They don't track it to the appeal stage when they end up letting this guy off because there's new science, right? Real old-fashioned detectives, they brag about their exoneration rate. They'll say, you know what, I put 200 men in prison for murder, and not one of them ever got out. Strong cases every single time. Not I've put 20 people in prison and 7 of them have gotten out. That's terrible. So you add up all the years of the people you've taken away from folks for bad detective work, and it ends up being whole lifetimes of humans, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
the Innocence Project also does it that way, that they tell you how many days, like, of all the exonerations that they've represented, they tell you how many days they've got, and it's in the fucking thousands, like it's in the tens of thousands,
lifetimes
of days of people,
lifetimes of days. And the going rate right now, and see, states have gotten they've gotten hip. What happens is sometimes when the Innocent Project starts sniffing around, states will meet with prosecutors and DAs, and they'll say, listen, the Innocent Project is involved, and from what we know, this was a weak case. Like, if we offer this man an Alford plea and release him now, that guarantees he can't come back and sue us. A year is what they're usually giving these guys. $1 million a year for 20 years. Let's hurry up and give him an Alford plea and kick him out before lunchtime. Then we ain't got to feed him. And keep
if at all they can get, even if at all they can get past the appeal, because often what they're doing is they're trying to stop the appeal to start with, so that they can't get it.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
And
some of the
explain to. Sorry.
No, I was going to say that some states, the way that the federal law applies to some states, it in a particular case law, it'll say refer to state penal code, right? So it's like this, they have that in Texas, right? So in Texas, after 11 years being a felon and finishing your sentence or your parole, you can own a firearm in your house. That doesn't mean that you can go buy one. that's the way the law is tricky, right? It's like for instance, New Mexico, marijuana is recreational, but you can only buy it with a marijuana card. So you find states that are in that limbo time where they're like, listen, you can own the gun, you can't go buy it. So I guess if grandpa leaves you the old ranch gun, then you can own it. But you can't take it out of the house, so on and so forth. So when state law or when federal law tried to come in and mess with that, there was the battle about Texas, in some facet. And so the way that the law works in regards to felons with guns at home in Texas, it says refer to state penal code. And so it's this weird thing where they call it the yes, no, yes. So it's like, yes, state law says you can. Then when you check federal law, it says no, but refer to state law. And then it's back to Texas and it's yes. So they call it the yes, no, yes here in Texas. And so, you've got a lot of that, and I don't know, guys. It's come to the epic levels now. We are absolutely, we are actually, we're not even stretching the truth when we say we're breaking down every single word Don says. It's like a Bible study, right? Like we are every word, we're going to give you the Latin definition and the synonym and the antonym. And, we're really just going to tell you how he should have never said he left for work. He should have said he had gone to work, just on and on and on, or went to work. Like, I don't even know. Like, that's bad science, right? Like that's bad science.
That technique that Chris uses, like you will
It's
notice
outlaw.
anybody who uses it, anybody who uses that same technique that he uses is a boomer.
What's that? What's that technique called?
The Reid technique.
Is that
REID?
REID.
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 The Reid technique. Now it's outlawed in Australia. I don't know about. I think only some states in America. And so this is what you need to understand about some of this stuff, like the lie detector tests and the Reid technique, is that this is a corporation who has invented something that they're selling. Okay, this is a corporate, and if you're advocating it, you've learned it, you've got in the course, you've learned how to do it, you've learned what they're teaching. You're making money for that company. In this case, Mr. Reid is being shot down all over the planet. Like UK and Australia have completely banned the Reid technique. We've actually invented one of our own, which we are actually teaching to America right now. We have our own law enforcement, not a corporation. Law enforcement have created a technique from their experience. And that's the technique we practice here in Australia. And now we're going to America and other countries, UK, to teach that technique.
Absolutely. And let me piggyback on that real quick and say that the Reid technique, what the Innocent Project fights essentially is the Reid technique. They are fighting the effect of the Reid technique because look here, the Reid technique
using
is
DNA.
Yeah, the Reid technique is the actual father of the false confession. Now, it says here in the highlighted blue, critics say that
100%.
the technique results in an unacceptably high rate of false confessions, i.e., especially from juveniles and the mentally impaired, which that's the Crow case right there, very first one, especially from juveniles and the mentally impaired. Criticism has also been leveled in the opposite case, that against strong-willed interviewees, the technique causes them to stop talking and give no information whatsoever, rather than elicit lies that can be checked against for the guilty or exonerating details for the innocent. What that's telling you is that it doesn't work either way. Not successfully. It's telling you that it's not good when you use it the correct way. And when you use it the other way, people just stop talking. They lawyer up and They give no information. They don't even sit there and lie, right? They're like, okay, these people are going to fuck me over. I'm going to shut up, right? They don't sit there and lie and lie and lie, right? But that actually, I feel like this is misspoken, because what they actually do in some instances is they will lie. Instead of just clamming up and saying, I want a lawyer, they lie. And that's where you start.
And that's what they're banking on. That's what they're banking on.
That's where they get the adult false confession, because you've got juveniles and mentally impaired. Now, when you think of mentally impaired usually on a large scope means adults that think like juveniles, right? That's why they put those two together, because what they mean is the scope of understanding is kind of the same usually for mentally impaired, that say a 20-year-old thinks on a 13-year-old level or whatever, right? There's people in America that function very high and own homes that are 40 years old, but think on a level that's 20 years younger or 10 years younger, whatever. So the Reed technique, guys, remember that as the actual biological father to the false confession.
Correct. Now, let me just move on, because people have talked about a couple of these things. I want to just talk about definitions, okay? Victims and corruption. So let me just start with corruption, because it's the quickest one to knock over. When you're talking about, a case that goes to appeal and they get let off because there's some sort of corruption involved, people just generally use the generic term corruption, but it's not that term. Corruption is basically when an official has been paid a financial amount to mislead or malfeasance, okay? That amounts to malfeasance. That's corruption, when there's a financial amount involved.
Listen,
but there's also the lesser known prosecutorial misconduct, okay? And this is the one that has probably the highest number of exonerations, is the prosecutorial misconduct that's, later proven by DNA, 80% of which are DNA results. So part of the prosecutorial misconduct comes to detectives who established a storyline for the prosecutors to go to court with in the first place, to get past the DA and to get the charges laid, that it starts there. And the case I was talking about earlier, which I haven't actually said which case it is yet for a reason, because I want to do it as a separate sort of discussion, but in that particular case, there was a lot of prosecutorial misconduct. It was basically linked to another case that the Innocence Project had the person exonerated for. All the same players were involved in that case, and there's very little punishment when there is prosecutorial misconduct. And it's and all I'm saying by saying that, it's not really a fancy word.
They just get fired and publicly humiliated, and that's it.
Well, they don't even get being fired. Like that one detective that I was telling you about, he got transferred to Plano PD. He's moving out of the area.
I got my fucking eye out for him, because I just want to stay out of his way.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, they don't actually get too much in the way of penalties. And also one of the most infamous forensic experts who was just misconduct in every bloody case she ever covered. She never got fired at all. She just got put into another sort of, like, I think she got taken out of that forensic office and put into a uni to teach. Like, holy shit, what are you trying to teach?
Right. For anybody that's not clear on what exculpatory evidence is, exculpatory evidence is evidence that's favorable to the defendant in a criminal trial that exonerates or tends to exonerate the defendant of guilt. Right. That's exculpatory. That's like
inculpatory, which is the only thing that the prosecution wants.
Right, exactly. So when it's knowing that, you know, the smoking gun you got isn't the right gun, but you say it is, or vice versa, right? It's something that's favorable to the defendant, but because you have, you know, some sort of ulterior motive, you're going to send him to prison instead of keep him free. That's what exculpatory evidence is. So,
correct.
well,
So that's fallacy. That's fallacy number one, knocked over. What corruption and misconduct is, so two completely different things, and neither of them are punished. So that's corruption out the way. That's a fallacy that everybody's corrupt, blah blah blah. No, they're not. It's actually, corruption is actually very low. What is pretty high is the misconduct. Now, I'm going to move on to victims now and just describe what a victim is, because people seem to be very confused about what a victim is. Okay, so you have your primary victim. So in the Summer Wells case, the primary victim is Summer. She's the primary victim. She's the one that the crime has been committed against. Okay, and her family are secondary victims. Okay, that is the crime that is of taking Summer has impacted their whole family, their sons and their family, their extended family, the people in their church, the people in their community. But when secondary victims, you're talking about the direct family and friends of the actual victim. So secondary victims are who we're so keen on bashing in the true crime community. We're all like, oh, Summer's the only victim, but she's not. She's not the only victim. All right. Even if you're of the opinion that Don did it, then Candace is a victim. If you're of the opinion that neither Candace or Don are, then they're both victims. If you're of the opinion that a third came along and did it, then the whole freaking family is a victim. So secondary victimization is what we're doing when we are rehashing this traumatic event that impacted their family, and you go over it and rehash it and you point fingers and you start blaming at secondary victimization. And we only seem to be mentally aware of it or accepting of it when it comes to SA victims. But it doesn't just happen to SA victims, it happens to all victims of crime. Facts. So we also had the same thing in the Amari Nicholson case. Everyone went after the mum and started dumping on the mum. She's a victim. Her son was killed. She's a freaking victim.
Facts.
So why are you dumping? Why are you secondarily victimizing the mum? She didn't kill the child. So you know, of course, there's extraneous circumstances where you can invent a reason that the mum should be chucked in jail because she's irresponsible or whatever, but you don't have those laws anyway. You don't actually have, you know, section blah of the bloody rah-rah Crimes Act saying you're not allowed to be irresponsible.
Right. So, well, my wife just texted me, and I have a prescription I need to pick up before 5 because I don't have the medicine to make it through the weekend, evidently. I want to finish this, and I've got to go get the prescription, pick up my son, and then I've got a niece that's coming to spend her birthday with my daughter. So I should be back available about, let's say, 5 o'clock. I'd like to resume this. But what I do want to do is sort of set up a template real quick. And so, Aussie, I was going to just drop a teaser of what the fringe topic may be. I don't know if this was a time that you would want to jump off or if you want to stay through the fringe theory portion.
Whatever. It's completely up to you.
Okay. So we're gonna do just a little fringe theory, and this is what Cam is going to come up and talk about this afternoon or early evening, whatever it ends up being. So we all know. Hold on. I haven't transferred this information over to my my phone yet. So we all know who this guy is, I think, right? I'm not going to say his name. I think most of us got to know who he is, right? So there's some people that, we talked about this gentleman, and I'm going to make this very quick, like 4 or 5 minutes. This gentleman is the one that was going to buy the property. He had an issue with the realtor, who was Mr. Hahn. So he was going to buy the property. It was advertised to include the creek. It did not. It did not include the creek. During that time, while he was there trying to close that deal, he had a run-in with the neighbor being off the line, the property line.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second, Benny?
Yeah.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? Can one of the mods kick out anyone talking about DRUGS, please? Not allowed on Facebook. Kick them out. Go on.
Come on, guys. Please. You guys got iron for a reason. I'm not. Was it somebody? Oh yeah.
It
Put
was just
her
a
out.
DRUG
Hold on.
Get them out.
Hey, you guys. When she comes back in, just go ahead and eliminate her. And that's all we're going to say about her. And Lizzie's she's got iron too. So this gentleman here, we're going to just talk about him a little bit tonight. JD, right? So that's JD, and that's JD too.
Wow.
Read that. A clean shave for a new start. What's the date?
Holy Hannah.
What's the date on that, guys? June 18th. When was summer taken? June 15th, right? So I think it may be safe to assume, I don't want to speculate or make a bunch of assumptions, but I'm guessing that this photo is back in Georgia where he lives at, right? So by the 18th, he was camping in Tennessee, and he was also at a hotel in the area. Now, one of the things that I found interesting about this picture, and it could be nothing. You can give me your ideas on it, but he's got what looks like, look behind his shoulder, kind of looks like planning. I don't know. I don't want to say planning. What is that? What is that over his shoulder? Doesn't it look like it just looks, you put it together in your mind what that looks like, right? Like if this is a hotel room, does that look like it's some, and I'm not speculating, but if I were putting together something going on, I might have a plan, or I might have, something that looks strange on the wall like that. Now, I'm not going to give you a whole bunch more details about JD, but I want you to listen to something. And then after you listen to this, we will close up and we will thank Aussie for coming. This is kind of to put a context, right? Listen.
But you mad us today.
Hold on. And we will thank Aussie for coming. I'm messing this all up. Hold on. I apologize, guys. Here we go. I'll skip it ahead just a little bit. Hold on. Still going.
Get your rig together, man.
It's going. It's in the video.
I said it makes me horny. God wants to be horny. Who wants you that way? God makes me horny. Oh, yeah. He gave me you as a present. You might have to give it back. You do what you do. You might have to give it back, huh? But you might have to do. Back around.
So we'll talk about that later.
I'm not sure
But anyways, guys.
anything, to be honest.
Huh? What'd you say?
I didn't hear much, except I didn't hear anything. Like, it was too hard to distinguish.
It is hard to distinguish over here on my end. I'll get it moved over and we'll talk about this. But that was an interaction between JD and his wife. So we'll go over some of the stuff and just kind of catch everybody up on JD. So in the meantime, in between time, I just had my brother-in-law and sister-in-law pull up, and I've got to go run and get the medicine. So Aussie,
Right.
thank you for coming this afternoon, and I hope you can join us again later on here this evening or whatever. If not, then we will catch you on the next one.
No, I'll be here this evening. Oh, it's not
There you
your
go.
evening. I think it's like my lunchtime. What time is it right there?
It is 9 to 4, 10 to 4.
Yep. And what time you going on? How many hours?
2.
2 hours. So it's 7 a.m. here. So 9 a.m. Rightio, cool. I'll catch us all in the morning. I mean 9 a.m. in your evening. Tomorrow.
No, yeah, I'll give you plenty of time to get sweet and all that. You know.
All good. All good.
All right.
Okay.
Well, hey,
hello
guys.
to all the chatters I haven't seen for a long time, and goodbye.
Thanks, guys. Hey, and remember, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Have a good day.